Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? I'm very, very excited to introduce Javier Cedillo Espin, the CEO of Onefinestay. Onefinestay started in 2009 in London as a big idea of a very small startup company that then ended up capturing the imagination of a much, much larger company of Accor. Javier is an old hand at Accor, one of the key innovators at Accor, and took over the task of bringing Onefinestay to the next level. So I'm very, very happy to introduce Javier.
Thank you, Alex. It's an honor for me to be here. I'm excited and looking forward to the session. So let me know if you want me to introduce Onefinestay. I think it's wonderful to be here in London because it is also in London where Onefinestay was born. And as you mentioned, just to give everyone a brief introduction and a bit of a story of where we've coming from. I mean, Onefinestay was a great idea because it was about finding the best homes in London and sharing them with a unique segment, which is what was luxury. And it started as a small idea. It started as an idea that that took off in London, was then tried in New York and Paris, and started to grow. What really pivot Onefinestay was into what we are today is our ability to be able to scale it to the next level. So Onefinestay today is the leading private rental luxury brand. We have 10,000 homes in over 33 countries around the world. And that is actually, quite a big departure from where it started. It started as a small company, and today it's become the leading brand in that many countries. But it wasn't done overnight. It is a story of merger. It's a story of seeking both external and internal growth, and finding ways to make it happen. Quality in Onefinestay and a clear brand was also part of the secret sauce of making this happen. But now we're focused on continuing that success and making it again evolved with the market, which by the way, we also see it evolving very quickly. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Let me pick up on a couple of the themes that you introduced. You introduced the theme of growth, that you've taken it from a small idea to something much, much bigger, and the theme of quality. Let's start with growth. We've debated over the last few days, is there growth in the industry? There is certainly pockets of very fast growth in urban areas around certain segments, the luxury segment being one. And there's areas that are stagnating. Where do you see the growth? Where are you focusing your investments?
Sure. So growth is in the private rental is similar to the travel growth in the way that there are cycles. In my position, I do run a global network business, so my growth is not everywhere. I have destinations that are experiencing dramatic growth. And that's because they're not saturated before, because we were not marketing before, or simply because there's a tremendous cycle of demand that's being pushed. I've got the Mediterranean, I've got certain areas of Europe, I've got North America, and some areas in Asia. They've got 200, 300% growth. Well, there are other markets where there are less growth, and because it's a mature market, or because there's are cyclical areas of the demand of the existing customer today that is we're not topping up that growth. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to grow. It's not going to grow in 1 year. Because one of the things about the private rental market, it is an evolving industry. And the customer that we have today doesn't mean it's the same customer that we'll have tomorrow. We have customers, a customer baseline that continues to grow and expand. We don't have enough Asian guests today. We do have a percentage, but not the percentage that I would like to have, and that's going to immediately drive growth. We don't have enough European guests from in certain markets, which is a huge growth potential for next year as well. So to answer your question in growth, I think growth is present. You cannot see growth in this industry in a global way. You need to be very specific about the destinations. You need to be very specific of the areas, and that's how you end up having a collection of achievements, consolidated achievements, versus what more traditional companies will see as growth.
And you can focus on this a little bit. Let's talk about customer demographics and who are the most interesting customers to, where do you see the growth coming from? When every time Airbnb does a presentation on the sort of bigger space, they talk about two groups, they talk about millennials and they talk about very specifically Chinese. How do you get those two? How important are they for you today? And then how do you retain them? How do you engage with them over the year?
So I'm not going to be as specific as, the Chinese customer is important for us. We don't have enough of them, but I'm probably going to talk to you first more about what our guest is today and what we're targeting, which will continue to evolve. We target between 30 to 50 million of the most affluent customers in the world. These guys are earn or have anywhere between 200 to 300,000 a net worth, and that's averages. Most of our customers have much more buying power than that. So in fact, what I'm telling you, for Onefinestay, our target audience is the most affluent travelers in the world. Now, today they're 30 to 50 million. Today they live more than 50%. They live in the US, in the UK, Australia, in Europe, and the remaining in Asia. Tomorrow that would change, and tomorrow we expect that also to become actually the demographics to become actually even more affluent than what I've just said. Why? Because we are growing in Asia, because we are growing in Latin America, we are growing in areas where those actual numbers will change. Now, in terms of specific niches, it's very difficult to say that one market, that there's going to be millennials, or there's going to be, we know that they're more affluent, and some of them are very successful people, so they happen to be in their 40s. But we also have a tremendous amount of affluent travelers that are in their 20s and 30s. And we also do, a lot of our customers are very successful entrepreneurs, like they're doctors. So it's quite mixed, but the one thing that ties them together is really their affluency and their desire and disposable income. We know they spend anywhere between 150 to 200,000 in travel. So what we know that they have is anywhere between 20 to 30,000 to spend on private rental, anywhere between 12 to 18 months. So that's the type of customers that we seek, and the type of customers that we focus to grow and expand our base.
I think you said a couple of very interesting things. I want to tie back to a conversation that Simon Lehman and I had last night about unit economics, that way too few property managers pay attention to unit economics. And if you just look at a property manager by sheer listing size, you're kind of missing the big picture, because there's no point to it if most of those listings are not profitable. I can assume with the sort of demographics and the economic profile that you've just drawn that your customers are highly, highly profitable. How do you go about, if I sort of think of the unit economics of a rental that's available only 2 or 3 weeks a year, like with an average daily rate of $100, like it's hard for me to fathom how we could possibly make money off of it. At the same time, like the kind of demographics that you talk about and the kind of daily rates, it's a very, very different ballgame. So obviously you have a very clear idea of why you're focusing on that. How does that change the way you can interact with that guest? What kind of services you can offer to them during the year when they're not staying with you, and how you invest into them? How does this drive your business model?
That's a great question. It actually changes everything, because it enables you to be able to see your strategy and the value creation on the guest in a very different way. For example, what you've mentioned, a guest that on average comes and stays and pays £5,000 in our world is our normal guest, but most of them actually pay 10,000. And in certain markets, it's actually 15,000 pounds. So that person, if that guest, if we spend $200-300 acquiring them, we want once they stay with us, we have not only the obligation, but our business model is actually to nourish that relationship to be able to get them to come back. So, and in the way that we've done that now is by actually investing in the journey that we have established with them, not only in the in-stay, the pre-stay, the in-stay, but also the post-stay. So when we did a lot of research with our guests and we asked them a lot of questions about what can we do to be able to get you back, a lot of them asked, we threw the normal questions on, should we give you points, should we give you this, should we give you discounts, should we give you welcome drinks, all these different things. And a lot of them told me, no, actually all I need you is to treat me better and remember my name, remember all these normal things. And they continue to do that. And most importantly, one of the most important things they told me is, give me more destinations, which was critical for me, because then I said, so if I actually want to change my business model and make it scalable, make it more profitable, make it also go from 100,000 guests to 1 million guests, or 1 million opportunities to be able to make money, how can I do that? And one of the biggest answers was, I need to be able to give them more choices and more destinations with better service, and versus just points. And that's what we did. This is why we went and we enabled through acquisitions to be able to expand rapidly, to give 200 destinations quickly to our guests. But then we expanded our service promise. And the service ends up being that short answer to your long question. Is truly service is really what enabled us to be able to gain that growth in the value of that guest. So we provided now when guests come to Onefinestay, we launched Higher Living. Higher Living is a program where it enables anyone that stays at Onefinestay to be able to have the concierge services even after they stay. Most of the time, people get kicked out of their homes, or get kicked out of their traveling experience. What we're doing at Onefinestay is exactly the opposite. Every time when people leave their villa, their home, their penthouse, whatever they're renting with us, they actually take back with them the concierge service to their home destination. So that enables them to be able to have that services for every day-to-day concierge needs and travel needs, and all the different things that they experience when they stay back home, be it San Francisco, be it Tokyo, be it Sydney, wherever they might live. We have the network, we have the concierge services to be able to do that. And what am I doing with that? I mean, we are actually developing that relationship at their city. So it is an investment for me. It is a service that usually people buy for anywhere between 5,000 to 7,000 pounds worth of a service. But because it is also core to what I do, I'm extending it in a way to be able to keep that relationship going. Because I know that if I keep that relationship going for 12 months, they will come back. Because I'm betting on that they have this 12 to 24 months, 12 to 18 months travel budget that they are going to be spending. So if I'm there at the right time with the right information, I have a better chance to be able to secure that repeat stay. And that ultimately will end up adding up in more guests. And more guests that are more valuable. So I went up from only 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and that the value creation for me is not only in homes and units, but in as many customers as I can accumulate, and in tying them up with that relationship, and also that quote unquote service loyalty that I'm developing.
I think it's a very interesting approach. That's part of the conversation we had yesterday was in a world of an increasingly prevalent closed loop system where the listing sites will no longer share guest information with the property manager, how do you recapture that relationship? And obviously this is a very interesting approach, probably not accessible to most property managers because you have to have a significant customer acquisition budget, but sort of that again goes to the point of why unit economics are so important. If you have the unit economics that you have, you can make that investment. Going back to your point about services, so we talked about the guest services and the concierge experience that you deliver. There's another component which is the the actual stay, as in the quality of the stay that they experience, which is all about process management. Over the last 7 days, I met with the head of the homes division of one of the 3 major listing platforms. And one of the things that he said was that they're appalled by how poor the quality of property managers across the board is. Like, sort of, there's a few very good ones, and then there's many not so good ones. That's obviously, it's a key point of differentiation for you, that you invest a lot into the services, into the day-to-day process management. We'd love to find out a little bit more about that and why you think it's important.
So absolutely, you Alex know this, but I have almost 20 years of experience in the service industry, and I'm passionate about it. A service is at the core of what Onefinestay is. High quality service is also what makes us different. And high quality service is delivered by human processes and technology, and that's been my my philosophy altogether. And I believe that particularly in the private rental business, it's critical, because there's nothing standardized in a home, and so many things can go wrong. So, so the successful property manager or the successful brand is the brand that can anticipate and solve. And in anticipation, you find true efficiencies, and you find profitability, and in a resolution, you find satisfaction and happiness and joy in customers. So that together is the result, but the road to that is process management. And the road to that is process management in a very methodical way. And it doesn't happen by accident. Anticipation doesn't happen because we hope for anticipation. We have to plan for it. And for us at Onefinestay, it's been a massive endeavor to be able to continue that and then scale it. Because for us, first we were in 4 destinations, and we were at 12, and now we're in 200 destinations. For me to scale it to 200 destinations, I have to have a process management that's damn clear and that it's effective, and then that also enables me to be able to be profitable and make this an interesting business proposition for the company as well. But in that way, for me, that's again, there's probably 3 things. It's again, it's a fantastic service-driven humans, processes that are tied to great technology that fast tracks those. So for me, that's I guess what my opinion is. And if you have those 3 things, and not in a specific order, you truly are on the right track.
And obviously, process management is at the very, very core of what we're doing, and so we're very much looking forward to working with you on that. Let me we covered a couple of the big picture points. I also want to leave a little bit of room for questions from the audience. One last point, what's following us is the hugely popular Steve Milo presentation on what's wrong with the OTAs. So I wanted to go into one quick point. Distribution is obviously, it's hugely important. They have helped tremendously in growing the industry. At the same time, they're also threatening to some of our business models as the closed loop system is taking hold, as there will be margin compression for us being squeezed in between. Couple of questions around that. First one is, how do you look at distribution? How do you make sure that you gain, did you keep the upper hand against the distribution channels, against the OTAs? And how do you look at developments like Airbnb Plus, where the OTA starts branding at the unit level? Is that a threat to you, as it makes your brand less important, or is it an opportunity because it raises the bar and hence provides more opportunity for high quality managers?
So those are lots of questions. So, but that's great. I think I'll answer quickly the first question on Airbnb Plus, and then I'll go into my perspective on distribution, because I think it's really important. I have tremendous respect for what Airbnb does, and they're continue to do tremendous progress for the segment and the industry. So for me, it's a good improvement to the way that will enable people to be able to seek and find properties in their site. And I think that's primarily their improvement. In terms of competition, the space is big. In terms of luxury, for us, we are still the leading brand, and I think that's not what they've launched to a certain extent. For me, what we're still very focused on the luxury brand, and we will continue to do that. And any competition that can come out of that for us is actually healthy. It keeps us on our toes, and we'll continue to strive to improve that and gain market share in the markets where we are less present, and where they're become or start to become more present. So for for me, it's a great news for the segment. It actually also means that we're not alone, and that we've got competitors, because this makes sense, and there's business to be made. So for me, that's all good. In terms of distribution, well, I'm not in a fight with the distribution at all, and I think that's been my perspective. For me, there are important distribution partners. Onefinestay will actually benefit from distribution, and will have to manage distribution strategically. We will have to continue to focus our growth on our database and our base of customers, to be able to counteract the increasingly growth of distribution costs. This is something that I cannot control, but what I can control is the strength of my brand. I can control the strength of my database, my ability to be able to do data structuring, data mining, and be smart about doing that. So those are the investments that Onefinestay has done, and particularly since in the past 12 months, we've actually really boosted up our investments in demand, in building the higher living program, which is a retention program, building and beefing up our technology to be able to make sure that we've got ability to be able to structure some of the data, ontology on customers, ontology on consumers, and that's actually hard work. And to me, that's hard work that will help us manage the increase in distribution of cost, manage the increase on a competitor popping up tomorrow, managing all the different things that will come. Because that's what makes this industry amazing and incredible, is the fact that we don't know the future, and that it continues to change. I used to be in my previous roles in industries that were highly documented, highly historical data for the past 30 years. That's not private rental. In private rental, we discover something new every year. But that's also what makes it exciting.